COVID-19 vaccine mandates are spreading across the U.S., from businesses to government agencies. But will they work, and are they legal? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. The Delta variant of COVID-19 is spreading throughout the United States. And with it, something else is spreading too. COVID-19 vaccine mandates. We're seeing COVID-19 vaccine requirements in all sorts of places, from companies like Disney and Walmart, Google, Netflix and Facebook, to Leo's Discount Vaccine Emporium. That one's not much of a surprise. We're also seeing vaccine requirements in state and local governments, like California and New York City, to federal agencies like the Department of Veterans Affairs. Recently, the entire federal government itself was added to the list when President Biden announced that all federal employees will have to attest to being fully vaccinated or undergo regular testing and wear masks. I'm sure that'll be a smooth process, because if there's anything government employees are known for, it's running things efficiently. Still, other organizations are considering implementing a vaccine mandate, including the Pentagon for all military personnel. And the idea has a lot of support from big, powerful people and groups, like the head of the National Institutes of Health, dozens of medical groups, including the American Hospital Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and Leo's Discount Vaccine Emporium. Again, not much of a surprise. Even the public agrees. Okay, slightly more than half the public agrees. So I guess that's that. Majority rules. We're all in agreement. Except, not really. If majority opinion ruled in America, colleges would be free, fun-sized candy bars would be required to look like this, and Morgan Freeman would be president. Despite minority voices getting very little airtime in the media, there are lots of them who don't support vaccine mandates. That includes the American Civil Liberties Union. Even back in 2009, their New York chapter was against mandatory vaccines for the bird flu. Yeah, remember when we thought the bird flu was bad? These days I brush my teeth with bird flu and floss with mad cow disease. My dentist is super confused, but at least I'm flossing. A lot of state lawmakers also don't support vaccine mandates and passports. Same with America's largest healthcare union, the Postal Workers Union, and even the Biden administration just 2 months ago. How quickly things change. If you watched our episode on vaccine passports way back in April, you might remember us mentioning that vaccine mandates are not new. Public schools have been requiring vaccinations since before I was born, which was in 1999. I look this old because covering the news ages you faster than meth. Those school vaccine requirements are backed by state laws. But the COVID-19 vaccine requirement has turned out to be especially controversial, with protests cropping up at colleges and parks, and Leo's Discount Protest Emporium. Man, Leo's making money on both sides. These protests in the U.S. aren't very large right now, but maybe that's because the United States has not seen widespread vaccine mandates yet. Europe, on the other hand, has, and their protests are large. And Europe is not exactly famous for its anti-vaxxers. So it's a bit strange to see some people lump those who specifically have reservations about the new COVID-19 vaccines together with anti-vaxxers who reject the entire concept of vaccines. Those anti-vaxxers aren't afraid of COVID since they already lost their kids to polio. So what makes the COVID-19 vaccine mandates so controversial? I'll get to that after the break. Welcome back. There's a debate raging over vaccine mandates. But why all the hullabaloo? Well, in the United States, one major debate has to do with whether or not COVID-19 vaccine mandates are legal. And like most things having to do with law, that debate gets really complicated really fast. For starters, vaccine mandates aren't fun. And most things that are illegal are super fun. For example, littering. What a rush. The first thing to understand about the vaccine mandate debate is that, legally speaking, there is a difference between a mandated vaccine and a compelled vaccine. With a compelled vaccine, there is no choice. The government can literally hold you down and stick the needle in your arm. In general, vaccine compulsions are not legal in the United States. And in this debate, no one is trying to actually force people to get vaccinated using, force, as far as I know. There could be a militant pro-vaccine biker gang out there. Hell's mRNA Angels. With a mandated vaccine, on the other hand, there are simply consequences for not getting the vaccine. Employers, for example, might say, get vaccinated or you're fired. This hospital in Texas did that. Meanwhile, the government might say, get vaccinated or we'll fine you. All of the vaccine mandates we've seen so far have been about where people can work and where people can go. Are you an employee and not vaccinated? You could be fired. Are you a potential customer and not vaccinated? The business might not let you in. Are you a student and not vaccinated? You might not be allowed on campus, like these students at Indiana University. Are you a carny and not vaccinated? That actually doesn't matter since COVID is the least worrisome disease you have. In short, a vaccine mandate doesn't force you to get the vaccine, it just imposes consequences for choosing not to. So are vaccine mandates legal in the United States? It's a bit of a gray area, like deciding whether hot dogs are sandwiches. The Department of Justice says vaccine mandates are legal. Their reasoning is based on the section of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act that allows the emergency use authorization of drugs and biologic agents during a public health emergency. Of course, there are some who disagree with that argument. Several experts have admitted that since the emergency use authorization law is relatively new and emergency authorization use situations are rare, it's a legal gray area that's waiting to be upheld or struck down by the courts. It's simultaneously legal and not legal, kind of like Schrodinger's cat. If that cat is dead in there, then you're under arrest for animal cruelty. Meanwhile, some people argue that since the COVID-19 vaccines are not fully FDA approved, they are experimental, which would put them under the Nuremberg Code of 1947, a standard medical ethical code for human experimentation that is accepted worldwide, which exists because, Nazis. The Nuremberg Code insists on voluntary consent for subjects in human experimentation. And the argument is that a vaccine mandate goes against voluntary consent. Imagine if the super soldier serum in Captain America were forced on Steve Rogers. He wouldn't become a superhero, he'd become a roided up guinea pig with trust issues. The Nuremberg Code hinges on the definition of experimental, however. Not everyone agrees the COVID-19 vaccines are experimental, since they have received some form of authorization by the FDA. The Nuremberg Code argument hasn't been decided in court yet either. And the FDA may fully approve at least the Pfizer vaccine as soon as September, which would officially make it no longer experimental. Another organization that says vaccine mandates are legal is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Their reasoning is that employers have the right to protect their workers from health or safety threats, including other workers. But they are careful to provide exemptions for people with disabilities for the Americans with Disabilities Act, and exemptions for people with sincerely held religious beliefs for the Civil Rights Act, Title VII. Speaking of Title VII, some have argued that vaccine mandates violate anti-discrimination laws, but others counter that getting a vaccine is a personal choice, so being unvaccinated shouldn't be a protected class in the same way that race, gender, or religion are, even though some of those are personal choices now too. And 2 federal judges have supported vaccine mandates in cases against Houston Methodist Hospital and Indiana University. Ultimately, the legal precedent for vaccine mandates by states was set by the Jacobson versus Massachusetts Supreme Court decision in 1905. That decision said states can require people to get vaccinated. So, as long as the mandates aren't federal, it seems they're sitting on pretty strong legal ground, especially once the FDA fully approves the vaccines. But will vaccine mandates work? Will people actually comply and get vaccinated? More after the break. Welcome back. Will vaccine mandates work? Some say vaccine mandates have been proven to work, especially alongside other incentives. They point to the effects of state school vaccine mandates as an example. Most school children are vaccinated. They have to be to get enrolled in public school. And parents get their kids vaccinated because potential side effects of vaccines won't make their kids nearly as awkward as being homeschooled. But others think the COVID vaccine mandates could backfire. They argue that mandating the vaccines will only make people more distrustful and more resistant. And given the highly politicized nature of the vaccines right now, they might just be right. And it doesn't help build public trust when, for example, the CDC says vaccinated individuals infected with Delta may be able to transmit the virus as easily as those who are unvaccinated, which, if true, might weaken the public health argument for vaccine mandates. So the CDC is in a tricky spot. It must continue to emphasize the proven efficacy of the vaccines at preventing severe illness and death, while acknowledging milder breakthrough infections may not be so rare after all. It also hurts public trust when the CDC needs to move the goalposts of success. I don't know where the new goalposts are going to be, but they're already 1,000 yards away from where they were during 2 weeks to slow the spread. Now, to be clear, I'm not making any claims about the efficacy of vaccines or about how the virus spreads. I'm not a doctor. I'm just an alarmingly old-looking 22-year-old. I'm only saying it's getting harder for the CDC and other authorities to build trust. Some medical professionals are responding to the public trust crisis by pressuring the FDA to fully approve the vaccines as quickly as possible. But the FDA has made it clear it won't give in to pressure to rush the process. They'll decide when to rush the process themselves. Thank you very much. Some people may be more likely to get vaccinated once the vaccines are fully approved, but only if they trust the FDA. Whatever happens, only one thing is for certain. Leo's going to end up making a fortune. So what do you think? Are vaccine mandates a good idea? Let us know in the comments. And remember, America Uncovered is mainly supported by viewers like you on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Today, I want to give a shout out to Jonathan Browdy. He's been a Patreon supporter for 3 years. So be like Jonathan and visit patreon.com/America Uncovered to learn how you can support us with as little as $1 per episode. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.